So 6.4 is really looking at a worksheet and figuring out what somebody did wrong. So basically, when we take a look here, we have ledger accounts on the top. So give me your eyes up here, because otherwise you're not going to be able to figure this out. So up here on the very top, we have all of these ledgers, okay? And if I go through and take a look at some of my ledgers, do you notice anything with this one? You see the problem? Okay, somebody had a difficult time understanding how to post. Would you agree? So what we have is somebody went through that didn't know accounting and said, oh, I can go through and take care of things. And they went through and journalized, and then they went through and posted, and they posted like this. And after you post, we prepare a worksheet. Okay? Do you think their worksheet came out? No, because remember the cardinal rule. If your trial balance does not come out, what are you supposed to do? Stop. So when we look here in the directions, we have a worksheet that somebody prepared, Paul Doty did. And that worksheet, if we look right away, has some major issues to it. Right? Because when we look at the trial balance, do our debits and credits equal? Nope, and they did not listen to Mrs. Grassel. They did not stop and fix it. So here, this is what we're going to be doing within 6.4, is we actually have to go through and look at what somebody did wrong and find and fix the errors. And there are lots of mistakes that are there. So I pointed out on the top some example of a mistake physically just done within there. So on the very top of our assignment, we have ledgers with mistakes. We have our worksheet, and then on the bottom, we have a spot where we're going to go in and fix the ledger mistakes. Does that make sense? And then once we fix our mistakes in our ledger, then we can go through and create a new worksheet. So it really takes you through the fact that when you look at a worksheet, if you find that you've made a mistake. So for example, we went through and did that reinforcement activity, correct? You went through journalize, you post, I have to grade your test yet of those questions. You are going to be getting those assignments back from me in the future, and you're going to have to create a worksheet from it. Is there a possibility your worksheet might not come out? Because you might have made a mistake journalizing or posting. So this is going to truly show you exactly how to go through and find and fix mistakes on a worksheet. Does that sound good? Okay. So we know that this worksheet is yucky. We don't like it. I'm going to actually make my screen a little bit smaller, just so I can see things a little bit easier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here in the bottom, and I'm going to start here on my first account here for cash. Now, again, the incorrect ones are listed on the top, and that's what they use to create that worksheet. And we are going through and helping Paul because, well, he didn't really know how to do it, but he tried. So we can see down here in our account for cash, we had a debit of $4,000. And what we can assume, because we don't have our information, that the information that is in these columns right here is correct. Does that make sense? Because we don't have the journal to go back and check this information. We're assuming that the individual amounts here, we just have to check to make sure he has in the right column and has done math correctly. So we can see that we had a debit of $4,000, so we get a new balance of a debit of $4,000, and then we have a debit of $7,000, so therefore we should add the two together and get not $15,000, but $11,000, right? Okay. And then we have a credit here of $6,750, so I therefore need to subtract. So I should have $4,250. Would you agree? So, incorrectly, previously, Paul had cash having a balance of $8,000. So, and I can tell that because when I look at my sample worksheet right here, he had cash balance $8,000. Well, that's wrong. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take this $4,250 and put this right here. Okay, so then we're going to go and check our next account. We're going to do each account on the bottom. I'm going to go to Accounts Receivable, Sharon Mann. I'm going to take a look. How does Sharon Mann's account look? Good, right? There's nothing really to change. So I'm going to take her balance, a debit of 1,000, and put it right here. Do supplies. We already knew there was a problem with supplies because that's the one I showed you on the top. So I had a debit of 600 and then another debit of 425. That does not give me 725. Does give me 1,025. After supplies, you'll go to Prepaid Insurance. Again, struggling a little bit with math on Prepaid Insurance. We should have 300 versus 450. Accounts Payable Power Supply is the next one. You'll notice that in Accounts Payable Power Supply, they have a credit and a debit, so they need to subtract. So they do have the correct balance there as 150. Please make sure on the worksheet you put it as a credit, not as a debit, because that is a liability. Liabilities have a credit normal balance. Paul Cody Capital. Looks like that one did very well. You can put 5,000 in there as a credit, not as a debit, just like I was trying to type. Go ahead and get to drawing. Drawing looks pretty good. Make sure you put that as a debit. Income summary has nothing. Checking still to make sure they didn't have anything in there, so I'm going to leave that blank on my worksheet. Go to sales. I don't know what they did there. Can't even say it's a math mistake. They just wrote the wrong number. Make sure sales goes in as a credit. Insurance expense should have nothing. Miscellaneous expense, again, a little bit of a math mistake. We need to add. So miscellaneous expense should be 175. And again, there should be nothing in supplies expense. The other thing that we need to do, if you have not done it already, is in the very top, we need to put in the name of our business, which is Leafy Lift, name of our document, which is worksheet, and the date. We are doing this for the month ended September of the current year. Guess what you get to do? Do some math, okay? And what you need to do on line 13, not on line 14, okay? Nothing is going to go right here on line 14. On line 13, you're going to do your totals of these two. Go through and add them up. If they do not equal, we need to do something. Okay, so take out your calculator and roll with it. So, Dalton, what did you get for a number up there? Anyone agree? All right, I like that number too, 7,050. Great adding. Okay, so now we are to our adjustment column, and our adjustment column is truly the column that we use for stuff that we have used up. Okay? So when we take a look here, one of the things, because we don't have the information per se like everyone else does, we are going to assume that the 390 and the 95 numbers has been calculated correctly. But when I look at this, is there a problem with the adjustment that Paul did to supplies? What did he do?
He put the adjustments for supplies and protection as a debit rather than a credit.
Because again, the purpose of this is to account for things being used up. So instead of debiting those, we need to credit them. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and take my supplies, and I'm going to adjust it by 390, and supplies expense is going to be debited 390. So the numbers, the values that they had there were right, they just had it done incorrectly. So 390 for supplies, and then 95 for prepaid insurance. Once we are done with that, we got to take our handy-dandy calculator out and add those two numbers up. Do I have any lightning fast adders?
405.
Wow. Lightning fast. Now, here's my question. Now what do we do? Yeah, we just finish it, right? We just have to finish the worksheet just like we learned yesterday. And as a review, the purpose of an income statement, did we make money or lose money? We do that with using our revenue and our expenses. The purpose of a balance sheet is to balance our accounting equation, which is assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. Every one of these accounts up there can only be one classification, and the classification will either go on an income statement or on a balance sheet. So again, if you know the purpose, it makes it much easier to go through and put your numbers there. So assets, liabilities, and owner's equity go on the balance sheet. Revenue and expenses go on our income statement. When you first put them over, should your debits and credits equal? No, because again, we have to figure out, did we make money or lose money? So let's go through and plug some numbers in. So I went through and I added up my numbers. Do I have a net income or a net loss? How do we know? Yes, so when I look at my income statement credit column, I say this over and over again because it's important for you to realize, my income statement credit column truly is the revenue for my business. So for 1 month, they had revenue of $1,900. The expenses for the same length of time is $660. So therefore, our revenue is greater than our expenses. We have a net income. How much is our net income? $1,240. $1,240. How did you find that?
Subtracting the debits from the credits.
Does that make sense? We just subtracted the difference between those two, and that gives us our net income. So, who gets the money? The owner. So since the owner gets the money, it has to go over here on the balance sheet as a credit because that's going to add to our capital account. So it's going to go on my income statement as a debit of $1,240. And it goes on my balance sheet as a credit of $1,240. When I add that up, it magically makes everything equal. If I take $5,150 plus $1,240, that gives me $6,390, which means that my debits and credits now equal on my balance sheet and they equal on my income statement. Oh, I had another mistake. I had 100 instead of 1,000. Go ahead and try on your own. The on your own one I really like because it really forces you to look at the mistakes that have been made and fix them.